everybody, welcome back to a new video. Today I would like to share with you one of my latest projects. This beautiful denim jacket is made with one of the patterns from the latest ebook from Sew Over It, from their ebook Summer Dreaming, and the jacket is the Sorrento denim jacket. I wanted to make this video. I shared my pictures of this jacket on Instagram, but I wanted still to make the video because I want to share with you the changes I made to the pattern. This is my fitting garment, and I also tried my hand a little bit on distressing the denim, and I think it's looking really cool. So I'm going to share with you my fitting adjustments I made. A few at the end, also a few top stitching tips I have when sewing with denim. So I hope you'll enjoy this video. I had a project like this for a long time on my wish list to sew. I have an old denim jacket. I think it's more than 10 years old. It's not really fitting me anymore, but every time I was thinking I'm going to make a new one. And I did have a few, and I still have a few other patterns on my list. But as a pattern insider, I had the chance, the possibility to make this jacket in advance, and so for me working with a deadline is always the best. I knew that I had to make it and to finish it on time. So this is how this jacket came to life. The pattern is, it has all the classic denim jacket details. So like the breast pockets, this one doesn't have normal pockets, but I think it could be really easier done to add here like a welt pocket. I think it can be really easy done. It has cuffs with the opening here, and the waistband with button tabs here on the side, really nice, and the back with princess seams and back yoke. The original doesn't have the back yoke lined. I also did not line the back yoke, but I think it's also very easy to make. Just cut another piece of the back yoke and sew it like you sew double yoke from a shirt. I really liked the drop shoulder on this one, and of course the color and the button bands, really nice. So these are the details about the pattern. I should say, okay, let's dive into the fitting garment. I made a straight size 12, which is putting me, I'm somewhere there. My bust is just a little bit, giving a little bit, is a little bit bigger than the size chart, but I was thinking that this is it does have some room here at the side, at the bust, so I was thinking I'm going to be okay. So based on that, I made my fitting garment on a straight size 12, and this is how it's fitting me, or was fitting me. So this is a straight size 12. I just sew it, basted together actually. So for the rest, it's nothing done, and the fabric is like twill. It's much lighter than the denim version, but it worked great for my purpose. So as you can see, even if my it does have a little bit extra should I say space here at the bust, because my bust is like 1 inch bigger than their size 12, but I think it did fit really nice here and enough room. I had two issues with this fitting garment. I had, for the first, the sleeves, they were really too big. I really hate long sleeves. Let me see if you can see them. They're really too big. You can imagine that if I was to hold them like this. So for me, immediately shorter sleeves, that was the answer. And I did shorten the final garment by 4 centimeters. And another thing is something that I have in 99% of my garments, was to take a little bit of this length here at the back, because as you can see, it's a little bit hanging here, the line is not straight. So in response to that, I decided to take 2 centimeters sway back adjustment on the paper pattern. So this is everything I had. I wanted to have to change on this, and the sleeves were good. So of course only the length was to be adjusted, and for the rest I was really happy with the fit on this. I'm going to show you the changes. I'm going to move the cam in a bit and then to show you the paper changes I made. And there you can see how I translated these two changes on the paper pattern. So for the fitting adjustments I made on my jacket, the first one was to shorten the sleeve, and I wanted 4 centimeters shorter. I didn't want to mess up with the cuff, so the cuff was left as it was. And I also could not take the 4 centimeters out from the bottom of the sleeve, because this edge here is of course made to fit in the cuff. So the best place to take out was somewhere in the middle. Like that I decided on a place somewhere here in the upper part, so not so much, because this is a wide sleeve, but I think you need to take in account how wide the sleeve is. And of course if I took here 4 centimeters out, this part, the slimmer part, will be brought up. So always keep in mind, look at these points. So I decided on a place and I took 4 centimeters. I drew a line perpendicular to the grain line, and then another one 4 centimeters apart, and then fold the pattern up. And this is the only change I made on the sleeve. For the back is made out of 2 pieces, and the center panel, so the center panel and the side panel, the center panel is cut on the fold. So I wanted to make the sway back adjustment, but still to keep this back on fold. There are other methods where you don't need to mess up with the center back seam. There is the seam allowance change that you can make, and another one that with the pivot and slide method. But I'm always using the method as described in this book. And this you just make the sway back adjustment as you normally make. So take here the first of all, because it's in 2 parts, I had to attach the side panel piece to the center back piece. First of all, mark the seam allowance and then attach those two together at the seam line. And then I drew one line perpendicular to the center back, because that will be the straight line or the straight grain. Drew a line, mark 2 centimeters here at the center back, and then drew another line going to nothing here at the side seam. Don't forget that here you need to leave a small hinge point, so I had the stitching line marked on the side panel at the side seam, and then my first line went to that stitching line, and the second one like a dart. So let's see, like this was my ruler, so like a dart going from the 2 centimeters mark again to this point, like this. And then this was the amount that I had to take. Make a small cut here at the side seam to the point, but not through it, and then you have like a small hinge that you can close the dart, and then you have your center back line shortened. Take those pieces apart, complete with paper to have it nice. And of course this was a little bit crooked, like you can see here. Where I added, you can see it was not straight anymore, the white paper. So the method, like is explained here in this book, is to put the panel back against a straight line, and then take again out from the side seam. So before you take these 2 pieces apart, align this edge where this upper point and lower point are coming back on a straight edge. You can use a straight piece of paper or a straight line, And then of course this, you get here a little bit of room, but then the same amount you can take it out at the side seam. And because this one is from two parts, you take it out from the side panel and not here, because you don't want to distort this line. You have it taken out here at this edge at the side seam, side panel. So this was the swayback adjustment of 2 centimeters. I'm always using a little bit colored paper to see the changes I made. So very, very, very easy. So these were the changes. The fabric I used for this jacket is a pretty heavy denim with, I think it does have just a little bit of stretch, but almost nothing. So it's a heavy denim. First I was thinking to make a white, to use a white denim, to make a white denim jacket, but then I was thinking that is going to be nice to make, but probably not so nice to wear, because I'm wearing foundation and that is going to be all over my jacket. So the white fell out. And then I wanted to make a black one. I have a really nice black denim that would work really nice, but I did not have a suitable top stitching thread. I was thinking something like dark gray, but I did not have that on hand. And finally I decided on this blue, which it was pretty plain. So I was thinking, what can I do to make it a little bit interesting? And on Craftsy I saw there were a few courses from Angela Wolf, and there I think it was something about jeans. She's showing a few tips on distressing denim, and I followed her instructions on distressing with sandpaper, and this is this one here. I had the block like this, and I bought a long time ago. It was like a set, the sandpaper block and the sandpaper. And with sandpaper is so that the lower the number, the more how should I say, bigger this will be, and so the higher the number, the finer it will be, the sandpaper. So I used the number 80 for my denim. And one big tip I can give you is, if you want to do that, use it after you sew your seams, but before you are adding your top stitching, because if you are going to use this on the top stitched seams, you'll definitely break your threads, and this is something that you need to avoid. So the best is, and I think the way is, to distress your denim after you are sewing your pieces together and before the top stitching. I tried a little bit on a few scraps of denim before I went loose on my real garment, and you see, this is all these lines here that they are really, I mean, they are really, because of the light here, they are not so distressed as you can see in that light or in this light, but I think the effect is really nice if you are how should I say, after you sew your seams together, so the two pieces together, iron or press your seam on the way you want to wear it or to have it at the end, and then distress on that side, because having those seams and distressing over the seams, you are distressing of course from the right side, it will give you also a little bit of a different detail here on the front. So as you can see, for a good example, and here I just went loosely distressing with the sandpaper, but here you can see like a small motif. I have it somewhere, let me see, because I have it on a few places here. For example, here where you can see those little points, exactly here. Do you know what is this? I have my one of my garden tables outside. It's from metal, and it has like really small honeycomb detail on it. That metal, all the small little holes. And I put it on the table, and then I just rubbed the sandpaper on it, and then I got this really really nice effect on it. And I used that also on a few other spots on the jacket. here in the front. You can also see it. Not too much, you know, don't go, I think it's better to try a few times and then to take a look at it. And this is also how it's looking after the jacket was washed, because of course a little bit more color to go away on the places that were sandpapered. So I think it's really nice. It's looking really, really nice. I'm really happy with it. And of course this is going to be a garment that is going to get a lot of use, of course. The sleeves are now like this, and I think they are really nice. I think they are perfect, much better than in the other in the test garment. And this is how the jacket is looking now. I think it's much straighter and much nicer here, the waist also. So this is about the jacket. The buttons are just regular jeans buttons. I really like this shaped pocket flap here. As you can see, it's not it's a little bit it has a nice shape here at the bottom. I think it's really, really nice. And the pockets, and of course they are functional also. If I can open it, as you can see. And the small facing here, the front of the pocket is getting finished with the facing from the inside, but because my denim was really, not really, but it's kind of thick, I wanted to avoid too much bulk, so I just used for this, I used a piece of cotton for the inside of the pocket for that small facing to avoid too much thickness. And for the rest, the jacket is unlined, as I said. And I think on my ready-to-wear jacket I have the denim jacket. The seams are finished with bias band, and they are really nice. They are bounded and they are looking really nice. And probably I'm going to try that in a future project. But for this one I wanted to be fast, so I just searched the seams all the way around, and I used thread that is really blending with the back of my denim. I think is very nice. One thing to keep in mind when making such a jacket that is unlined and everything is seen on the inside, and you have this top stitching, I think it's really nice to have a really well balanced thread tension for your top stitching, because otherwise when top stitching with that thicker thread, you have the chance to get those loops on the back side of the garment. And I did have on some, like you see here, if you watch really close you can see a few loops, but this is something to be avoided by putting the tension on your machine a little bit higher. So this is the jacket. This is the finished jacket. I think it's really great, and I know I'm going to wear this a lot. And I'm still not, I did not forget, because I really want to have that black one top stitch with dark gray thread. I think it's going to look really great. For top stitching I'm going to talk in a few minutes in my tips. I used that Gutermann thicker thread, and I did not have enough, so I used the most of the jacket is made with one color, and at the end I did not have enough, so I changed for the, let me see, I changed for the waistband, and for the cuffs I changed to another color. And from that color I also had the normal thickness, so the normal polyester thickness, the all-purpose thread in the same color, so the thinner version. And that one I used for the buttonholes, because my machine will not make really nice buttonholes if using the top stitching thread for all this thickness here. So I think that worked really nice. The instructions are made are really nice, really great, and something that I did not see until now is that they are made in such a way that you can you top stitch as much as you can every time. So you are stitching as much as you can before you need to cross with other seams. You are stopping and top stitch a bunch of pieces, and then again stitching things together, and again a bunch of things to top stitch. I think that is really nice. If you are using only one machine, you don't need to change the thread after making every seam. I did use two machines in my case because I had the possibility. I used my normal puff for the top stitching, and to put the things together I used the small machine for my daughter. The, I don't even know what it's called. The puff, the Smart from my daughter. It's a really great machine, and I did not try it on top stitching, but on putting the things together, and it did handle really nice the thickness of the denim. This one, it has also a really nice color. I bought it for my daughter, but of course I still need to take the time to sew with her. Is the Smart by Puff. This one, you see, it's very light, but I think it did a really great job on sewing this thick denim. For top stitching I have just a few tips, and really easy. Top stitching is really not difficult. It's only a matter of practice. And that will be also my first tip that I can give you with top stitching is practice. If you are going to start a project, choose your thread and make a few practice pieces. Try on scraps of fabric, and let's say that this is a denim you are going to use. Don't make a sample by just stitching like this on a piece of denim. You really need to replicate the seams you are going to make. So let's say, like I have here, I have I have 3 layers of fabric, because I have the two things sewn together, the two parts, and then again this layer. So when I'm making my top stitching samples, I'm just folding this. I have like this. If it's folded, I have 1, 2, and then I'm going to put it to the side, and then I have exactly the same thickness like I have in my denim. So this is something you really need to keep in mind when you are making your samples, and do make your samples. That is the best advice I can give you with top stitching. If you are using a thicker thread like this one for top stitching, the best advice is, and you need to do it like that, because otherwise it's not going to work. You'll get really crazy stitches. You need to use the thicker thread as your upper thread, and the normal regular thread, use it on your bobbin. Here in this jacket I used this thread, the yellow thread or pumpkin thread. I used it for the top stitching, and in my bobbin I used the same gray thread I have to match the back of my garment. Use a top stitching needle. There are needles that they have a bigger hole, that they are feeding much nicer the upper thread, the thicker thread, and they are handling much better the layers of denim. So top stitching needle, also very important. Another, and of course, to have your stitches straight and regular, you need to try to use you need to find guides on your presser foot to guide you when making the stitches. Like on this one, which I noticed that it got a little bit broken because I think it was well used. I have all these kind of lines and edges, and when I'm starting to make my top stitches, I keep in mind that if my first row is going to align with this small white edge here, the next one is going to align with the inside of this metal one. So always find a guide and always look at that guide that is walking on your seam where you want to have it, and don't look at the needle. That is not going to help you to have a perfect top stitching, but looking at the guide you are choosing on your presser foot, that is going to give you a really nice straight stitching line. Something else when making buttonholes, I had this with a dress, I think, or with a jacket, I don't know anymore, that I had to make buttonholes, but of course it did not. My machine didn't want to sew those all these small stitches with a thicker thread. So I had this thread, the 448 from Gutermann. It was really thick, so I called my my fabric store and I asked if they don't have something similar, but in a normal, regular thickness, and they did, and that is really great because you can top stitch with a thicker thread all over your project, and then use the thinner one to make your buttonholes, and that is going to help your machine if giving problems with the thicker thread on the buttonholes. Something else, another tip is when making the sample, you don't make the sample only to decide, or I should say you make the sample to decide on a few things. One of them is of course the color of your thread, if you are happy with the color against your fabric. Another one is to decide on the length of your stitches, and I advise you, and this is something I'm also doing in my projects, when top stitching, take a little bit longer stitch. So if you stitch normally the pieces together with a 2.5 or a 3, take a 3.5 or a 4 or even a 4.5, test it on your piece of fabric and see how that is working. So take longer, use longer stitch length, and to avoid those loops in the back, I did do a pretty good job on this one. I have it here, I don't know if you can see it, really small loops. That is because the pressure on your upper thread is too low, so put that higher, the upper thread tension, put it higher, and then you'll see what a big difference is making. And you'll also see that sometimes on corners is also, you get the chance that that the tension is starting to act a little bit and give you those loops. But in really important places where you cannot do something else, I think you can put the same thread color, like I said, back and front, and then you get really good results. Like this one, I put it the bobbin with a thinner thread, and the upper thread, the top stitching with this one, and then I used for my band because I knew that I had a few corners here and that my machine is going to try to make a mess out of them. So use a top stitching thread only in the upper thread, use a thinner thread, the same color as your top stitching thread for your buttonholes. Make samples to decide on the stitch length, make samples to decide on the tension of your thread, and also use a top stitching needle that is going to help your top stitching results. Find a good an easy guide on your presser foot, and also follow that and not the needle, because that is going to give you the best results. One last tip before I'm stopping is if you have thick seams like this ones here, this is a pretty thick seam, or especially here the corners of the pockets, the best way before you go to top stitching is to use a hammer. Take a hammer and a piece of wood or something like that. The best is to do it on the floor and not directly on your table, and give a little bit hits here on the thicker points, and you'll see that the fabric will compress, and then you can really stitch here really easy. I think I was really afraid that this is going to be a mess here on the pockets, but I think it turned really nice, and this is only because I really hammered these thicker seams before I got on my machine for the top stitching. So this was the video for today. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you like my jacket, and I hope you got some good tips with sewing with denim and top stitching denim. This beautiful dress is also from the Summer Dreaming from ebook from Sew Over It, and I'm going to make also a video for it where I'm going to show you a little bit of my fitting tips for the bust, the changes I made in my own dress. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please share it with your sewing friends. Don't forget to give me thumbs up and subscribe to my channel to see new upcoming videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!